right, Spear and Clover podcast. I'm your host, as always, Jason Skisick. Very excited to talk to Wes Mathews. Wes owns High Level Digital Marketing and also sits on the board of EO in Detroit, which is a topic that I'm super pumped to learn more about. Wesley, how you doing?
Good. Thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm switching between Wes and Wesley because of the corner there. Do you prefer one or the other?
Wes is good.
Awesome.
Wesley reminds me of when I used to be in trouble, so Wes is good.
That would be my instinct too, but I caught myself looking at the corner there. So Wes, tell us, that's kind of the high level. Tell us a little bit about yourself, about your business, where you're coming from.
Yeah, so I'm 40 years old, grew up in a town, Plymouth, Canton, Michigan, graduated high school in 99. I wasn't the guy to take the traditional college route. I think it actually took me about 6 or 7 years to get my associate's degree from community college. So I kind of joke with people and tell them I went to become a web doctor. That's why it took me so long to get my 2-year degree.
Yeah.
But, I always had a sales background. I think my first job, I was 13 years old. I was a dishwasher. I actually pulled out the yellow pages, made a cold call to the first restaurant I saw, got the job, $6 whole an hour, I believe that was. But, being young and kind of trying to figure out what I want to do in life, I quickly kind of jumped onto mortgages. So I was a loan officer and I did that. And I remember just thinking to myself, this is not what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. I'm just mid-20s. Nobody takes me serious. And I would always naturally gravitate towards web. And I just really loved web and where things were coming. Because again, the web just kind of was a new thing at that point. So being a 20-something, I was a target market for that era in terms of people trusting me and wanting to get feedback from. So in that time, I kind of moonlit at a web development company while I was doing mortgages. It was really interesting. I took on a sales role there. To kind of condense a long story short, pretty much every project I brought to that company, every project sort of blew up in that company. So I was kind of looking at it look, there's got to be a better way to do this, right? You can either do it right or you can do it wrong. I prefer to do it right. And that kind of led me to kind of venture in my own company. And I started that company back in 2009 and took on a partner early on. We went 50-50 in the business. I actually bought High Level Marketing, the domain name, 3 years prior. Actually, a weird story. Woke up in a cold sweat, just kind of chanting high level marketing, and went on cheapnames.com because at the time, marketing.com, anything was gone. For whatever reason, that name was available. So I bought that name and we formed the entity High Level Marketing. We partnered and, we had a really great run. We actually had a really successful year leading up to COVID. And we actually went through a large acquisition in March of 2021. So ran that company, and then we are currently looking at the second opportunity to grow that company in the next phase of growth.
Sure.
So I grew that company to about 50 employees, and then we did an acquisition where we partnered with a company called Bell Media out of Alabama. They had about high 50s, low 60s in terms of employee headcount. And so today we've joined forces. Now we have about 110 employees nationwide. And both companies were aligned in terms of the same value, same culture, same product. And, we'll probably get into that a little bit later in terms of, entrepreneurial run company moving to a more professionally managed environment.
Yeah.
But then also just the scalability and the hockey stick growth that I wanted to pursue with this organization. So a lot of things in terms of me being the CEO, feeling like I was being held back in terms of really driving growth. So a lot of good stuff to unpack in that. But that's the story. I mean, we are a digital marketing company that focuses on entrepreneurial run companies. So small to mid-sized companies. We really don't work with Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah, and that's a lot more fun, right? So there's a ton in there. That's such a great synopsis, man. I appreciate the origin story. The first thing that jumps out is, it took me, I had lots of stops and starts as well, getting my associate's degree. I went to school for a little while, and then I joined the military. Otherwise, I'm certain, knowing myself, that I would have been in the mortgage selling business as well. That was very hot for people like us at that time. I'm 39, by the way. The interesting thing you say that you got highlevelmarketing.com or whatever it was at a time. Well, one of the sponsors of the show is High Level CRM, and their website is Go High Level. I'm always like, why is it? And it's because of you, man. I actually believe that you probably got their ideal, because they're CRM. They're not necessarily a marketing company, but I just think that's funny.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually reach out to them because we've actually gotten a ton of calls for them and vice versa. And we kind of shuffle them back and forth. But yeah, they are a CRM company. We're a web digital company. But
I don't know those guys myself, but I do know some folks that met them early on and heard good things, and software is great and have used it myself, and it's pretty cool. So listen, you talk about getting a second bite at the apple. You made a partnership. I don't know how you want to phrase that, where somebody came in, invested in, and you guys basically combined these two companies. What has that process been like? Because there's a lot of people that are going to be listening to this where that's one of the possible dreams, right? Whether it's an exit or whether it's combining forces and getting another bite at the apple. What's that process been like for you?
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned early on, I sit on the board for EO Detroit, and that stands for Entrepreneur Organization. So I joined that organization, I think in 13 or 14. And, that organization was extremely helpful for me as an entrepreneur. Because I think as an entrepreneur, it's kind of lonely. It's a lonely road, right? And unless you can find your tribe or your people that can kind of help you along the way. And that's essentially what EO is. It's other like-minded entrepreneurs. So, and the reason why I mentioned that is because that's where I really had a lot of learning and a lot of growth. And the one thing I learned out of that organization, it's called EOS. So it stands for the Entrepreneur Operating System. So this was like a remedy to my chaos in my mind, because here I am, an entrepreneur. I'm a visionary. I don't really follow process. I'm hiring people. I'm adding revenue clients, and everything's very chaotic. EOS gave me a framework to run a very, just a well-rounded entrepreneurial run company. And one of the most important things I've learned out of the EOS platform is at some point you have to go from an entrepreneurial run company to a professionally managed company. And I worked really hard to work the model the EOS way. If you're an entrepreneur, even if you're set in your ways, I encourage you to read Traction or anything from Gino Wickman to give you a different perspective. It's just another way to look at things. In the back of my mind, right, I think as an entrepreneur or CEO or whatever, like there's always, who's your worst enemy? I think it's between here.
Sure.
And, I think I did a great job of building HLM to where it was, but I would always question myself and question my own ability. And in 2020, we did $6.5 million in revenue. That's like straight service revenue, not third-party advertising revenue. But I felt like it's not growing fast enough. And we've been Inc. 5000 pretty much every year. We've had great growth, but I just felt that, if I found a right, whether it's private equity or some type of partner, because I think doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results you're crazy, right?
Sure.
And that's what I started to feel like. I'm like, I have to do something big to create massive change. And I want to see this hockey stick growth, and we have something really special. So that was kind of in the back of my mind. And then all of a sudden, what happened in March of, was it 19 or 20? I don't even know anymore. Like 20, COVID came out of the woodwork, right? And, that was a little bit jarring at first. I mean, it didn't really hurt our business per se. I mean, we worked with a lot of clients and delayed payments. We didn't lose any clients due to COVID. But it was one of those things in the back of my mind. I'm like, like there's these outside things that can happen. I've built a great business. I have 4 kids at home. I've been married for 15 years. I'm 40. I'm like, this could all be gone tomorrow. And I want to do something big. I don't want to run a company. Like I don't want to come in and just run a company and in 30 years look back and be like, high level market. Like that's just not what I wanted to pursue. I'm an entrepreneur. I either need to be growing or kind of nosediving. And my partner came up to me and said, kind of waving the white flag and said, hey, like if I had X amount of money, I'm done. I was like, okay, like that's interesting. And for me, being a visionary, whatever's in my brain, I tend to see and find. It's just like the analogy, like I think I bought a Jeep maybe 10 years ago, and I don't think I recognized any Jeeps on the road. No sooner than I brought the Jeep home, I'm like, I saw like 35 Jeeps on the way home. So he's waving the flag, and I'm like, so he put that in the back of my mind, and I'm like, look, we had a great relationship as partners, 10, 11 years together, which, that's a big milestone. And lo and behold, I'm sitting at home. I'm working from home. I get private equity emails like every day. People want to buy the business. We're in digital. It's a really hot, sexy thing right now. And I had a gentleman reach out to me, and he's like, hey, blah, blah, blah. There's this, company. They want to buy you, blah, blah, blah. And I looked at his picture. And I don't know if you're familiar with Grant Cardone.
Yeah.
But Grant Cardone, I just finished reading his book, 10X. And the guy that was talking to me looked just like him. So I'm like, all right, I'm bored. I'll talk to this guy, whatever. So he and I have a great conversation. I think I gave him like some crazy multiplier of EBITDA, like kind of like an FU number. And he starts laughing. Well, let's keep in touch. If something happens, great. If not, great. I wasn't looking at the time. He calls me back 2 weeks later. He's like, I really like you, blah, blah, blah. There's this guy in Alabama that I think you should talk to. Just have a first date, have a conversation. I'm like, fantastic. So there's some things on HLM that, we were doing our planning going into the new year, like our 3 priorities, or if you're an EOS fan, our 3 big rocks for the year. I have a conversation with the CEO of Bell Media. His name's Scott Bell. And sure as shit, his top 3 priorities, they've already done that 2 years ago. And they're like accelerating, like amazing on that. Yeah. And then the voids, like his 3 big gripes that they need to clean up. I'm like, that's easy for us. like we've been doing that. Like we have a really strong technology component because we built all of our own proprietary technology. So it was this weird serendipitous call where I'm like, I never personally want to sell high level marketing 100% and walk away. It wasn't ready. But my goal was if I could create a strategic partnership with the right partners to really grow it for the next phase. Because number one, it was opportunity for employees. You know, I had employees coming up to me and saying, hey, what's next? Or what does my career track look like? And I'm like, work harder, do more. Like, to be honest with you, like I was kind of like, I don't know. You know, we're just servicing clients, we're selling, you know, we're really busy and we're growing that way. So I had a great conversation with Scott. I'm sitting there thinking like, maybe we could do something here. I mean, I think that there could be an opportunity where we could take some chips off the table, restructure something, and then do something moving forward. That's essentially what I did. You know, we partnered, we ended up selling 80% of the business. My partner and I retained 20% of the company moving forward. And, you know, we took both businesses, High Level Marketing and Bell Media, came together as one company. We decided to keep High Level Marketing name because it was just better than Bell Media. It was just his last name. There was no like emotional attachment to it. And we rebranded the company together. So it was kind of nice because I think me as an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur. Like I'm not a CEO, and I was getting burnt out. I'm like, I don't really want to be CEO. I want a professionally managed CEO to come in and take this company to the next level. What I really wanted to do was sit on the side of that team and help support that CEO for the next phase of growth by way of chief revenue officer, chief growth officer, because I was getting burnt out with just running the business. You know, I'm more of a relationship guy. I'm a deal guy. And I just kind of saw like through the vision, through the trees of like, there's so much more value I could be providing by just doing what I love and what I want to do. And by design, it all came together. So here we are, January. We closed last March. So we're about 10 months in. And that's been a wild ride in and of itself too. So there's a lot to unpack there. But as I sit here today, it's great. I have zero regrets, a lot of learning. You know, as an entrepreneur, I love experiences. I love new things. And going through this experience has been, you know, one of the most amazing things that I've ever gone through.
Man, that's such a great story, man. I could listen to that all day. First of all, and we'll talk about this in a moment, but you got to do a book or a podcast or something. Just such a good story. And you're clearly so passionate about it. I think that there's some nuggets in there that I think are worth kind of picking out. One of those being, I know that you kind of even said it, you know, your biggest enemy might be between your ears. I think a lot of times entrepreneurs struggle with, you know, we're the type of people that want to come in and solve it, right? We see the world as it could be, and we can't help but take action to make that reality, right? Like that's what an entrepreneur does. We create what previously didn't exist. And so it's hard because you get into that world where you're like, okay, I did it. I made this company and now it's starting to make money. And you're like, well, you always think you can do that. Well, EOS, I'm going to do JOS. I'm going to do Jason's operating system, or even to a point where, you know, I think there's this idea, you know, it's like pseudo intellectual idea that we can continuously just do this on our own. And it's like, oh, we want to grow. Let's just grow. But I think if you look back in most really successful organizations, you can track these really big moments in their history. And it sounds to me like you guys had a really big moment in what is a continuingly enriched history of this company. And that's just so exciting to hear you talk about. Like just watching you talk about it, I get pumped, man. Like I'm so excited to hear that. You know, I too, I've made 2 exits in my career, and one of them I retained a good chunk of equity, and mostly because I couldn't imagine not being around for what's coming next. And sure enough, you know, I'm not as big a part of that company anymore, but I get to play along. I get to be a part of that. I get to, you know, add vision or consultation whenever possible. And clearly just listening to you talk, you know, there's a lot of vision there. The other thing that jumps to mind is, you know, at any successful company, you know, you can track the success of a company by the number of real rock star employees that it has. And I feel like there's this like cruising altitude where, and you'd have to tell me, but there's probably 5 really, really rock star employees at your company. And maybe there's 4 or 5 real rock star employees at the other company. And then by combining those, you have a company with 10 rock stars. Like that's really, I think that's tough to build a bench like that organically.
Yeah. You know, I think it was always my goal as CEO, I felt, to run high level marketing, to put the right people in the right seats. So there became a time where I was hiring everybody. I mean, we went through a phase, I think on like my 9th or 10th employee, we went from like 10 to 35, like within a few months.
Yeah.
there's challenges around that because I think me as more of an emotional visionary kind of guy, what happens with me, I meet people, I interview them, I fall in love with them. And then in a week later, I'm like, what people around me are like, what are you doing? You know, I'm like, I see the best in everybody because it's really hard to separate the emotional and the business side of it. So
I call that,
I got out of that.
I call that high beams of hope. I call that high beams of hope. Right. Whenever I meet anybody, I see the best possible version of them. But go ahead. Sorry.
But so I was able to fix that, but then I really started to focus on the leadership team. So I think, you know, my goal was, look, you know, I can put so my company, EOS, we had visionary, we had the integrator, which is the chief operating officer, and then we had the leadership level and then team members. My goal was to empower my leaders. So I was out of the day-to-day, which was amazing. I hate day-to-day kind of stuff, but my goal was just connect with my leaders, run successful meetings, and then, you know, hold them accountable to their goals and then look to the future. Mm-hmm. And I think that sort of just kind of ran its course. I'm sitting there looking around me and like, I'm not a big gambler, but I'll tell you, every time I've gone to Vegas with a couple $100, I go home broke. Right.
Me too.
And I'm looking at the business, like things are great today, right? EBITDA is healthy. Everything's good. I got to take a chunk off the table, not for myself, not for whatever, for my family.
Yeah.
You know, tomorrow's not guaranteed. So that's what I did. I think by design for myself personally, because a lot of people came at me from a lot of different angles, like, you know, you're going to sell your baby and this and that. And I said, look, high level marketing is not a baby, number one. I have 4 kids, so I can speak from experience. What happens with children? Yeah, they're babies. They poop and pee on you. It's cute. It's fine. But at some point, your kid is going to be 17 years old and they're going to go off to college or they're going to make a big life decision. And your job is to grow and go them, right? Your job is to support their decision and guide them through life. And I felt like high level marketing was there. I was keeping on to that kid way too long. And it was time to like high level marketing grew bigger than myself and my partner. And it was just time to do that. And I think over the years, just struggling with the right leadership team. And, you know, I hired and changed COOs 3 times. You know, I'm between my own ears, second guessing myself as CEO. And again, just meeting these guys serendipitously to say, look, you know, they lacked a chief revenue officer. They lacked a chief technology officer. That's what my partner and I were and we are. And I looked at them as a very polished CEO and a phenomenal chief operating officer. So it was kind of like the C levels can align. And then they had somebody on the inside who was head of accounts who I had met. And I was just like enamored with the ability of this individual to really manage accounts because we were struggling with that. I mean, we just grew really fast. We have a lot of accounts. I have great leaders and great people, but I couldn't hire fast enough. So a lot of their structure and a lot of their gaps, and same on our side, when we came together to put this thing together, it was really awesome because, you know, if anybody listening runs a digital company or a company, you know about how much you spend in systems, process, labor. We were able to take both sets and say, which one's better, right? Which project management tool is better? Which one creates more efficiency? Come together, pick one. A lot of our own internal tech. So it was really great to be able to like save on expenses. We're talking, you know, we'll do 21 million in revenue in 2021. There's a lot of revenue in terms of just save costs. So all around coming together with the same vision was amazing. And I kind of had to look at myself in the mirror, turning 40. Like, what do I want to do for the next 10 years? Like, I want to swing for the fences because for me, it's all about experience. If I ever go off to consult, I'm like, look, 6.5 million's good. By all means, I'm not saying that's not great revenue, but my goal is to exit a company 100 million plus. Sure. I want that experience. And I looked at these guys and where we're at in our phase of life to say, look, we come together, we can shoot for the moon. And I think we have a real viable chance of doing it. If we continue, I think we're going to implode as an organization. And a lot of people didn't understand that, but, you know, I think it was just a gut thing for me to do and my partner and other people involved and, you know, tough decisions, but we're on the other side of it. I think it was the best decision for the organization.
Yeah. And it sounds like it. I mean, you know, just as you're talking, I think it's Applewood Farms, the CEO set it up so that he was always the traffic cop, not the toll booth. Right. And I think as entrepreneurs, we're the type of people that raise our hand and take responsibility. But I think the really successful entrepreneurs, and it sounds like you're well on your way, Wes, are the ones that can recognize when it's time to give that responsibility to somebody else and to step into that new role. I've worked with Coach Alex Charfen. Alex Charfen talks about he's got a billionaire code. And his point teaches you what you should be doing at each level of revenue for a given company. And it's a pretty good little resource. But So shout out to Alex Charfin. The big takeaway is the thing that made you get from one level to the next is the thing that's going to shred you if you're too focused on it in the next level beyond that. Yeah. It sounds like you've got a really good instinct for that. And so I'm just so pumped to see where you go from here. So where do you think you go from here? Are you guys looking at the same type of clients? Are you moving into new markets?
Yeah, we're really honing in on our craft. I think it's hard as an entrepreneur because at some point we were trying to be everything to everybody, and anybody that would wave a dollar at us, we're taking them on. Now we're very intentional about the clients we work with. So it's got to be home services and healthcare for us and franchise type companies. So like I said, we built our own technology. So like the franchisor to the franchisee and the management and communication, like we're phenomenal at that. The small to mid-size home service company, plumber, roofer, electrician, from a web perspective, in digital marketing. So organic optimization, paid search. The reason why I built this company is I saw so many marketing companies out there selling all these programs and websites and services, and none of their customers knew the ROI. They're like, we're spending a lot of money. We don't know what works, and we're upset. Our model is we're extremely transparent. We show ROI. We have really awesome dashboards. It's very intuitive. It's like you're paying this and you're getting this in return, and we manage it transparently. And that's why our model works. Our model has always been setup fee followed with a monthly recurring revenue payment behind that. And, when I hooked up with Bell Media, that was their model too. So we're coming together to really refine that and to come up, we launched just a website SaaS product where instead of paying a large setup fee, it's just a monthly fee on day one. And, we call it the last website you'll ever need.
That's great.
And that's been going really, really well. So just to kind of talk a little bit about the scale, like we did in December of 2021, we did $1.1 million of new web sales. So it's a pretty good clip. So I feel like we're not the web.com of the world, but we're not the small boutique shop either. We sort of live in the middle. And we're able to, jam out the level of production. We have a lot of team members that support everything we do is in-house. We have team members, ranging now from Michigan, Wisconsin, Nashville, Alabama, Texas. Like it's pretty amazing. On the one hand, COVID's been, obviously it's done what it's done, but it's also opened up these new opportunities for us to go outside of our territory to bring on really amazing talent.
Yeah. And I think that's smart. I also just would add from my experience, I've worked primarily in the brick and mortar fitness space. So I've consulted for brick and mortar fitness owners, gym owners, and nutrition folks. And it is such a buyer's market in that, $1,500 to $5,000 a month of ad spend type of range. Such a buyer's market. If you can just fulfill consistently, then we can adjust offers and all sorts of stuff around that. So, it's a great business to be in if you guys can deliver on the goods for sure. And the world has, like you said, you guys navigated COVID very well. I think that market is kind of well suited for COVID, right? We all saw a huge run to digital marketing. And I think a lot of people got caught with their pants down. And I live in Northwest Indiana, buddy. I don't know how it is where you live in Michigan, but they've got a long way to go before the market catches up on digital market and digital presence. It's, there's going to be private equity funds, that are buying up auto shop chains and, all different types. You talk about service providers. There's going to be so much opportunity in that space, I think, for the next foreseeable future. I just can't wait to see where you guys go from here.
Yeah. And I think from a sheer business perspective, when you look at a $6.5 million company like High Level Marketing was, looking at EBITDA and a multiplier of EBITDA, you take another company that's doing $11 million and you put those together and you squeeze out that EBITDA, the multiplier together is that much greater.
Sure.
So that's another reason why I did it. Like we're stronger together. We have a lot more opportunity. Private equities, like there's certain numbers in my world in digital marketing that just, you have to hit certain numbers. So for us to get above 10 million by ourselves would have been this like really hard path. By us coming together now we're at today, just made us skyrocket. So from a sheer business perspective as an entrepreneur, I had to look myself in the mirror and say, owning 50% of this company is amazing, but owning 10% of $100+ million company is more amazing. Yeah. And that opportunity is here. So I think as an entrepreneur, there's time to look in the business and work in the business, but you got to be able to zoom out. And I think with COVID, that gave me a lot of time to sit in my home office and think, and
Well, I think that's a wise choice because, again, that victim or the enemy between the ears, right? It's easy to think I want to own 50% or I want to own 100%. I'll buy them out or whatever it might have been.
Right.
But not only did you have the presence of mind to recognize that, and I had the same what you just said about being a 10% owner of a $100 million company, same conversation a couple of weeks ago with another very sharp, very savvy guy. Another thing I want to point out is software as a service. So you guys have decided to enter this software as a service business. And aside from like beer distributorships, I used to be a commercial banker. Aside from beer distributorships, I don't know what is a better multiplier than software as a service. Maybe you could speak a little bit to why that segment has become so valuable in the business space.
I think for me, it was like dumb luck, because I think when I set off to build my company early on high level marketing, I just had this concept or idea, like, wouldn't it be great if a business paid once and then paid you every month? And lo and behold, right, web and SEO, like that was the ticket. Because I think that, being a salesperson or anybody that's in sales, knowing that making the initial sales really hard, takes a lot of time, energy, and resources. Going back in 12 months could almost be harder, good, bad, or indifferent. Like you have to remake the sale. So I'm like, if I could just set this up on repetition, right, and then kind of hit it head on every month or every quarter, it's going to be a lot easier and a lot more scalable. So I think why the SaaS model, the reoccurring revenue is so sexy and attractive is because it's very predictable. And also you can look back at history. So coming together with Bell Media, it was really easy to like talk about clients and see the transparency of the history of the clients. We're not a one-hit wonder. We're not just building projects and moving on. It's, right. Oh yeah, if I don't even wake up out of bed tomorrow, we're going to bill $550,000 of just reoccurring revenue next month under contract. Mm-hmm. So I think also too, in that world of, web and SaaS, like the monthly payment is nominal versus coming in and billing somebody, say $1,000, for 12 months of SEO, it's $12,000 a year versus saying it's $1,000 a year. And we're going to review and manage this with you along the way. So I think just that income is just so meaty and it's so predictable because we also had a really high retention rate and we had all this information for years. So the one thing I would have done a little bit better knowing what I know now, because I didn't realize I was going to do this when I did it, I would have cleaned things up a bit. Like I would have spent 6 more months really fine tuning and cleaning up stuff because it was kind of a shit show at the, like trying to go into accounts and clean everything up. And it was like, well, just trying to get everything ready. We closed in like 3 months.
Wow.
So, we closed really fast. Most of the time these deals take a lot of time, but we're like, there's so many synergies that we have together. And now our quarter starts February 1. So we wanted to hit that last year and be ready. Just like, let's just go. We're going to be together February. Let's get it done. So I would have taken a little bit more time.
Yeah.
But I kind of use the analogy, like I have 4 kids, right? A lot of people think I'm crazy. There's never a good time to like have a kid, right? It's just, you just got to do it and then you deal with it. And that's where I think with the business, I was like, you know what? Yeah, I could have this 100% buttoned up and sealed and delivered, but let's just go through it now and have a conversation. So I think communication was key. I was very close with the deal. I had some really great people on the side doing the financials and getting in the nitty gritty. But I think for me, it was clearly communicating everything, answering questions as they came up and knowing that we're going to partner together. So, we want to make this thing as, just over communicate, little give and take here, give there, and then come together and just go.
Yeah. And to that point, I look back on anything that I've done or even things that I've watched, colleagues or clients do, whether it comes to stuff like mergers like this. And nobody ever regrets the few percentages or the couple of $1,000 or maybe a couple of $100,000. The thing that really matters is if once we're together, like how good does it feel to have a partner that you can rely on, that complements you, that pushes you forward to a place that and they know neither of you maybe would have been able to make it there quite as easily. Not to say you couldn't.
Yep.
When we talk about Spear and Clover, the purpose of this podcast, something I'm very passionate about is kind of not just working hard towards something that's difficult and valuable, but doing so while we're taking time to appreciate life and follow our passions and stuff. Today's show is brought to you by High Level CRM. High Level is an all-in-one platform designed to help entrepreneurs grow their businesses without the need for multiple softwares or an IT team. Not only does their easy-to-use software allow you to track and manage your leads throughout each phase of the relationship, but it also allows you to build funnels, track stats, and more. Guys, I sat down and added up the cost of software I was able to replace with just one app, and it was over $1,000 per month. Because this is an all-in-one application, I also save a ton of headaches connecting apps and building automations, and the team at Go High Level does a great job of getting you started quickly and easily when you sign on. I cannot more highly recommend these guys. Right now, Spear and Clover listeners get a free 14-day trial of High Level CRM for themselves. Click the link in our show notes to support the show and get started on your free 14-day trial today. Today's show is brought to you by Scaling with Media. I mean, literally, like if it weren't for the folks at Scaling with Media, you would not be getting this. Scaling with Media is a truly revolutionary company for any entrepreneur who wants to reach a larger audience without taking on the years of experience necessary to master the required skills. These guys do it all. From helping you develop your creative plan to editing, sourcing content, copywriting, ads management, and way more. Whether you're looking to launch a YouTube channel or podcast, or you just want to scale your business out to more eyeballs, these guys are the absolute best one-stop shop. But that's not all. Right now, Spear and Clover listeners who sign up for their brand launch package will receive a free, that's right, free professional grade studio kit that I'm actually recording right now on. The studio kit includes a professional microphone, stand, lighting, and headphones, and is worth well over $500. Take action now by going to scalingwithmedia.com/spear and claim your free studio kit. Again, that's scalingwithmedia.com/spear, scalingwithmedia.com/spear. Now back to the show. Outside of business, is there anything, what takes up your passion? What takes your focus? What do you love to do?
Yeah, so I love to golf. I love to golf a lot. I have 4 kids, so I stay pretty busy. I think, as an entrepreneur, I think a lot about personal, family, business, right? I sleep 8 hours a day. I have to sleep 8 hours a day. Some of my friends sleep too, and they think it's awesome. But I have 16 hours in a day. And, for me, I want to spend 50% of my waking hours with my family, with my kids.
Yep.
And I probably put in about 25% business and 25% personal. So I'm not going to lie, the last 10 years, I've kind of let my health go a little bit sideways and I haven't worked out like I should. So, since this merger and since COVID, I've kind of just, block out my AM and, mentally relax and go to the gym. But I do a lot of golf. I do a lot of fishing. I do hunting. I live in Michigan. Deer hunting is a big thing. But yeah, golf. I probably golf like 60 rounds a year, maybe 70 rounds a year.
Wow.
And my kids are super active in sports. So like today, my son had a hockey tournament on a Monday. Like it's just, I try to be at everything I can, like family first and then business. And I think as soon as I changed that mindset, like I used to, when I first started the company, I was like, I want to make a certain amount of money and I want to go, and just do these things. As soon as I backed away from that and started focusing on my priorities, the money kind of followed. So, just try to spend as much time outside with friends and family and, not getting any younger. Kind of woke up and now I'm 40 and I'm like, oh man, I want to really focus the next 10 years and, try to balance everything, not grind myself to a nub to make more money, because I think now at some point in a HLM, I think 5 or 6 years in, I stopped chasing money. And now with this merger, it's nice to be able to make day-to-day decisions where it's not driven upon, I'm not doing this for a buck, It's a really mentally, it's an amazing position to be in, but it's a completely different thought pattern around waking up and doing things day to day when it's not solely around, making money.
Yeah. And this is a recurring theme. I've had these conversations, not just on the podcast, but also on the podcast, but for years. And you get to this point, I think, the famous study was like $72,000 a year or whatever it was at the time. You get to this point where, you start off as an entrepreneur, you have your back to the wall, you're fighting your way out of a foxhole, right? And you're making it happen. And I cannot tell you how much I love that period of any business. I've started multiple businesses and there's a period like that for all of them, right? If you're lucky. But it's so great when you realize that the purpose of money is not to go out and be taken. The purpose of money is to be earned, right? And so if you're out there selling something or doing something or providing a service that helps people or, puts people in a better position or whatever it may be, that fits you, it's just so interesting that when you focus and can get really excited around that, how much money goes, right? You talk about, if it really is the last website that my company's ever going to need, take my money, man. Like, I don't care about the money because I'm going to make more money, especially in a B2B business. We're selling money, right? If you're out there working with other businesses and doing a great job, you're selling money. And the recurring theme I've heard from you is so much around passion and relationships, so what is the thing that you're excited about when it comes to that stuff kind of going forward?
Yeah, no, I think I think with the company where we're at right now, I mean, I saw this as an opportunity for me. Yeah, I'm a big relationship guy. I
Yeah.
like meeting new people. I don't like to sit in front of a computer and crank away work. So what this opportunity presented for me was, number one, meeting new people with the team. I'm really good at kind of looking at things from somebody else's perspective. So I think oftentimes in an organization, it's hard to walk in a teammate's shoes, or I think as an executive or a leader, you get so focused on the goal and the drive. I always had the ability to be like, hey, what's really going on, or what's bothering you? Or, being a family guy, like, I know some days are hard and your kids are sick, or like you just had a shitty week, or I just understood those things. And I think that, kind of my next version of what I'm going to do in HLM is, I just kicked off our whole entire 2022 trade show schedule. So I'm going to do a lot of trade shows in terms of the fireside chats, the chief growth officer of high level marketing. I mean, to get in front of as many small business owners as I can through these conferences, meet and greet, shake hands, and just really talk about, what we do and how we do it. And I think that anytime I can get in front of a small business or talk to anybody who has a viable question, and I'll be honest with you, most of the time, it never has to do with web and SEO. It's usually some type of other business issue that I end up diving into. But, for me, my passions are, I love meeting other entrepreneurs. I love meeting startup entrepreneurs. I love people that hear something on a podcast or read something somewhere and they ask questions, because I just like giving experience shares around. Like, I'm never going to tell anybody, like, you need to do this. It's more, hey, I went through that experience. Here's what I did. If I had to do it again, I might do these things different, or I did this and it worked out really well. But I think applying that to just every facet of life and businesses, like, I get so much energy out of that. Like, this podcast, I don't even know how long we've been on for. It feels like a minute. It's probably been 40 minutes, and it just feels good. It feels right. And, for me, I've kind of switched my thought pattern of, if I can offer or give advice or help somebody a little bit, like, I get so much out of that. I got an email, actually a LinkedIn message. One of my wife's friends, she was looking to get back into the, employee world or whatever. And, she asked my wife, she's like, hey, can you connect me with your husband? And I guess she was terrified to do that. So I'm like, I give her credit for asking her and doing it. And I'm sitting here behind, like, I'm excited to talk to her. Like, I'm getting ready, and like, this is my stage. Right. And, the conversation went okay. I thought it was a little strange, and I kind of just sat and listened. And I think I talked for a little bit over an hour and kind of helped. And didn't think much of it, right? Because I do a lot day to day, just like everybody else. 2 days ago, I got an email or LinkedIn message, and it was like, Wes, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm now overseas. You said 3 things that really stuck out to me. Bam, bam, bam. I want to thank you again. I've entered the world of here now based on what it was, just like amazing to hear that. And like, that's what drives me. If she would have sent me a check for 10 grand and said, hey, thanks for the talk, here's a fee. Like, the fact that she's like, thank you so much for your time. That was amazing. It really helped me take that next stride. Like, that's what I love doing as an entrepreneur, as a human being, to be honest.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. Again, the money is incidental. You alluded earlier, you're a big part of your local EO group. And I'm fortunate. I'm pretty sure I no longer am eligible to join EO right when I was about to, because I just sold my company. So until this podcast is hitting some big numbers, then we'll give you a call.
Yep.
But almost my entire network, friend group, whatever you want to call it, I've met through a professional organization in one way or another. Whether it's a mastermind, whether it's a course that had a community element to it, whether it's my own masterminding course, and then now have been fortunate, from meeting some folks from EO. The folks that I spend time with that are involved in those organizations, whether they're the same ones as me or not, they get it at a different level. And it's so much around helping each other out. It's so much, you hear David Goggins say, who's going to carry the boats? And it's so much carrying the boats shoulder to shoulder. And it's like, I don't view other entrepreneurs as competition. I view them as assets and as people that I can help with on a team. Maybe tell us a little bit more. And we've been fortunate. We've had several folks from the EO organization come on. What role has EO and other groups like it played in your, development as a person, and how are you giving back now?
Yeah, EO changed my life. So I think as an entrepreneur, business got to a point, I used to be a lot more aggressive and just like, boom, boom, kind of banging on the table, like, get stuff done and let's go, let's go, let's go. And, EO was that opportunity. I met a guy by the name of Josh Linkner. He actually created ePrize here locally in Detroit, one of the first promotional digital companies early on. Sold that for a lot of money. Very intelligent, bright guy, now New York Times bestseller. And I remember meeting him serendipitously, and I'm like, Josh, I'm going fucking crazy because my business partner and I were at odds, and I had nobody to go to. All of my friends are W-2 employees. I didn't know any other entrepreneurs. So he's like, you don't need therapy. Go join EO. And I'm like, what's this EO thing? And I left his office and I joined EO. And I remember joining that organization, and you had to be grossing over $1 million in revenue. You have to be the founder, and I qualified for all that, and I joined it right away. And the one key element of EO that changed my life was something called Forum. And what Forum is, so there's about 100 members of EO Detroit locally, and again, they're all entrepreneurs. So if you look at a room of 100 people, it's all people that are doing the same thing you're doing, except instead of slanging websites, they're slanging consulting or RVs or it didn't matter.
Yeah.
It's all a widget. And that's what I learned. But the cool thing about Forum was, and I got involved right away, it was once a month for 4 hours. It was myself and 7 other guys from different types of businesses that met once for 4 hours once a month. And we touched on personal, family, business, top 5%, the best stuff. This is shit you're not going to tell anybody. And then the bottom 5%. So again, I think as an entrepreneur, as a human being, right, I probably needed some serious therapy. I just didn't know what I was doing. Being able to have this safe space, what's talked about in Forum stays in Forum. Here are 7 trusted guys that I can open up about the good, the bad, the ugly. That changed my life. To be honest with you, like so much has happened with this group. We are still a group today. EO has changed my life, where I got right involved on the board because I was so passionate about the organization that, look, I'm a type of guy, like, don't sit there and bitch from the sideline. If you want change, be part of it. Yep. So I'm like, I'm going to get on the board because I care about where this thing is going and I want to be part of that. So I still add value that way. But the Forum's been life-changing for me. But EO as a whole, every couple months, we're bringing in a world-class speaker. We're networking amongst each other. And it's a non-salesy organization. So it's just being around other like-minded entrepreneurs. And EO Detroit is EO Detroit. There's EO Chicago, LA. We're actually small in the world. There's Malaysia. It's all over the world with tens of thousands of entrepreneurs. But I had the opportunity to go to MIT through an EO program for 3 years and be with 68 other entrepreneurs from around the world to do more of an intimate learning. So for me, like, I love learning. I don't think I ever opened a book in high school, but as an entrepreneur, I consume as much audiobooks and, I have it ready on the fly. Like, what's my favorite book? Like, I just consume so much, and EO has been really just a lot of that, just like my personal mental coach to kind of keep me healthy along the way and motivated. I mean, I went through some tough periods, and there's also been people that went through some tough periods that have called me in confidence. And it's just been this amazing thing. And even in this deal for the merger, I had a lot of people that kind of helped me with my blind spots and just not saying do it or don't do it, but saying, hey, from my experience, I went through an acquisition, or my friend did, or this is what happened, or think about 12 to 24, 36 months down the road, or whatever it was. It's just been a really powerful thing. I think as an entrepreneur, you've got to get involved in something.
Yeah,
you have to.
I couldn't agree more, man. And you talk about EO, the word EO, just if you're listening to this, replace the word EO with this group of people. These all represent people. This forum represents 4 or 5 other guys and gals that are a big part of your life. And, I've been very fortunate. I've traveled with folks that are in peer group. I've ended up mentoring folks on my own. I've been mentored by folks. And I think it's just such a rich and rewarding thing. I remember when I was very young, 20s, young, being told, like, one of the best things you can ever do is mentor. And I was like, oh yeah, cool. Can't wait. And then was the beneficiary of some really fantastic mentoring where it was just genuine, earnest, like, hey man, you can do whatever you want, but this is what I've learned through my experiences. And so mentorship has been another thing that I've really enjoyed. Like, it took a long time before I was willing to even say, like, hey, I'll mentor you through this. I've been where you're at before. So between those two things, I couldn't agree with you more. And listen, if you're not a good candidate for EO, there's other organizations, right? At some point, I'm sure that we'll have some sort of a group that will do something similar. But masterminding, forums, don't just pick up a book and read it, because I think that the way that these relationships are is so much more involved and complex than that. And the friendships, man, are lifetime, right?
Yeah, EO's got a cool thing. It's called EO Accelerators. So people that aren't quite at the $1 million mark, I think the clip is 250,000. But it's kind of like a version of EO that's really focused on giving entrepreneurs the core skills to kind of get to that next level. So it's really cool to be a part of that, because the whole goal is it's called EOA. The whole goal is join that and then grow into EO. So it's really cool to see people graduate into EO from there. It's just a really great organization. Like you said, I mean, I think it's, a lot of people don't talk about, being an entrepreneur, or it's lonely and it's stressful and it's hard, and I think that more oftentimes than not, I mean, by me just like having a conversation with somebody, I know what the answers are, but kind of getting it off my chest and just hearing other people's experience shares, you pretty much get your own answer. But I think it's just that for me personally, it's that release valve that I need as an entrepreneur to just kind of, keep
Yeah.
marching forward. Cause everybody has their good days and bad days. And it's just to be with a group of people that are all going through that together is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And then another little thing, and this is just me. I know some folks that agree with it. I am very competitive, but in like a loving way. And so when I go to an event or I go to a mastermind or I have a group that I know is out there and we're each the leader of a tribe, right? We're out there doing our own thing. You're the king of your castle. But motherfucker, I know you're out there getting wins and improving. And so the next time I see you, I'm going to have something to say. And so for me, as a little bit of a competitive chip on my shoulder, I just won't go back to another event without something to lay on the table. You know what I mean? I want to hear how you're out there winning or losing and what you did
Right.
to navigate that. And it gives me a little bit of extrinsic motivation to be like, aha, we did that thing. What'd you do? Oh shit, you did that. That's cool. Like I love that. Has that motivated you at all?
Yeah. I think for me, it's been more, I think as an early entrepreneur, right, the world's intimidating. You start to meet people, you're intimidated. And what I learned through EO is just the conversations are the same. It's literally like just more zeros at the end of the dot. And for me, like, that's just amazing of just being able to be around people, not really talk about business. And yeah, to your point, like, here are some huge, massive wins. And these people they're genuine. I mean, like my deal or other deals that happen, like people there are authentic and they want to see you win, and I think you go outside of those walls, the world's a dangerous place, right?
Sure.
And it's always just great to go back and be part of it. So I think for me, it creates a lot of opportunity because I've met so many great people and there's so many opportunities on the table. So as soon as I did this deal, there's all these people I've talked to like, hey, let's do something together. It's just when you hang out with like-minded people, there's a lot of great things that happen out of it. So it's been fun.
Yeah. So we ask two questions of everybody that comes on the show. The first question is, if you had access to unlimited capital, what would you do to profitably grow your current business? What are some things that you might do?
So I think for us, we've really figured out in terms of, essentially what we do for other businesses, which is how much do I need to spend to generate a new viable opportunity?
Sure.
So knowing what that is, I would take all of that unlimited amount of capital and just get 3 to 4 really good opportunities for each salesperson per day and hire accordingly and hire for growth. That's all I would do. Honestly, I wouldn't go crazy from that. I think that just giving good quality leads to salespeople and then hiring the best people. I think that right now, I don't even know what the terms are for it right now. The Great Recession, the Renaissance, whatever's going on, I would, if somebody wants to hire in at 80, I'd pay him 120. I would overpay and I would put huge bonus compensation and structure for people that are hitting their KPIs. We do that today in terms of we do actually monthly bonuses and KPI goals. But I think that, giving back to the team is really important. Putting viable goals in front of team members so that they can hit it to then celebrate in those wins too financially is huge. So overcompensating people and, high quality leads for the team would really scale and grow our company tremendously.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I think there's a beauty and elegance to your business. And it's very similar. I was in a smaller version of it for brick and mortar gyms. But if you've ever been coached by me or you've ever worked in an organization that I've been a part of, you've heard the same things that Wes just said. We're just with different numbers, right? You talk about your cost to acquire a new client. Well, if I know it costs me $100 or $1,000 or $1 million to acquire a new client, and that new client's going to give me 3x up front or whatever the cost of that or the sale will be, well, I'm just going to sit in that machine and I'm going to feed that thing bills all day long, right? So that's a great point. And even the compensation stuff, like the overcompensating great employees and really incentivizing them to feel like they're the fuel for your rocket ship and you give them an opportunity to put some fuel in their rocket ship, right?
Well, I think the one thing that I learned, not early on, it took me some time is, because strip me down to my DNA, my bones, I'm a sales guy at heart, sure. Right? But what I was able to do, I think, was really bridge the company from, I kind of relate it to like restaurants. It's kind of an easier analogy to understand. Like you have the front of the house, which is like your wait staff, your hostess, the tables, how the dining room looks. Then you have the back of the house, which is the cooks in the kitchen, the ordering, like all the hard work. The server brings the food out, right? And that's awesome. But like there's a lot of steps that went into that. So what I was able to do and what was really important to me was how do you get the back of the house production involved in the sale aspect? Because it's always like sales versus everybody, right? Like in any company, I don't care what you do, it's sales versus everybody. So we were able to harmonize that to then help production and sales kind of come together and work together and win together. So if sales is selling another deal, it isn't like, oh, cool, sales is going to make a huge fat commission and we have to do the work. It's hell yeah, we have this opportunity to make a lot of bonus because the salesperson just made a great sale and let's kick ass and deliver a phenomenal product. So we changed that culture. We're now, because I went through a period where like, I'll never forget, we're in a meeting and a big deal came through into the organization. And I remember the people in production were like, oh, and I'm like, I'll never forget that moment. Cause I'm like, this is my fault as CEO and the entrepreneur. Like they should be excited. They want to put their head through the wall. We have to fix this. And we went out to fix it. It didn't happen overnight, but it took some time, but we changed that perspective where now production was like, hell yeah, you got another one. Let's go, to get excited. So
that's such a good point. How transparent are you, just for the folks listening, how transparent are you about, revenue, wins, losses, revenue goals, bonuses, things like that? Does everybody know, like every time X happens, then Y happens, or how transparent are you guys?
So again, I'll have to bring it back to EOS. Yeah. I had a lot of anxiety around showing people, right? Because everybody's like, this is the CEO, he makes millions of dollars a year, Nobody actually realizes that there was times when I didn't know how the hell I was going to make payroll. I'm not taking a salary. Like you get all that stuff. But I think that EOS platform allowed me to do it in a professional way to show the real numbers that matter. So how much we're gaining per month in terms of reoccurring revenue, how many clients we're losing. I was as transparent as it could be. I would never disclose how much a specific salesperson is making, but in terms of top line revenue, our profitability, all those numbers were plastered on our walls and plastered up on, moving targets on our monitors. I thought it was really important to get everybody on the same page to understand 5 metrics of the company to know and why it mattered. Because there was times where people look at numbers and I could see like nothing's really resonating. Like I could say, hey, we did $1 million in sales. And they're like, cool. I could say we did 50,000 sales. They're like, cool. They don't know the difference. So there are certain trigger items and KPIs I wanted to make everybody aware of so they could ultimately get excited about, are they going to hit bonus or not, and understand why gross revenue and profit, so we had different service lines and some were more profitable than others and that kind of thing. So I was super scared to be transparent. And then I did it. And it was like this, big lift off my chest. And then I could speak intelligently around it. So if I'm having a conversation with a team member, they're like, what's EBITDA? Let me show you. And now they're like, oh my gosh, like this makes sense. And then they tell their other teammate, and just, I could always speak to them the vision of our 3-year plan and our 3-year target. And it really changed my life because it was just, I didn't have to go off script. I could just use this vision and 3-year plan of ours and kind of just have conversations with it throughout the organization. It was amazing.
Yeah. And I share that experience and also have met many people the same way, but all of us have that one thing in common, and that's the anxiety before you do it.
For sure.
You're like, I don't know, man. I don't know if they'll really understand. And honestly, what I found was I got more empathy when I started to share those things. And those numbers, when I started to share them, were going hockey stick style. They were going up very quickly. But people were like, oh, I understand. I see the thing beyond what's just in front of my face. So that's really awesome. The second question that I ask everybody is, if you had to drop it all and start a totally new business that is not like one you've owned before, what do you think that might be?
So I'm going multifamily real estate.
Okay.
So I've already toyed around with a couple multifamily syndication deals. To those listening, it's simple. Somebody else is doing the work. I just cut a check to invest. I love real estate, and that's something that I've done my own, like a couple small deals here and there, but I think that at the end of the day, people have to live somewhere. I think really, multifamily apartment buildings, it's really hot right now. It's really interesting to me right now. Just there's so many different ways to make money. There's so many tax advantages, and just brick and mortar. Like I look at my 4 kids and like, what can I do for the future and really secure? Like that's what I'm on now, is how do I build not like I don't want to say like an empire, but like what's that long lasting legacy?
Sure.
And to me, it's real estate. I mean, I live in Novi, Michigan, which is it's just unbelievable the amount of building that's going on here. So yeah, real estate, multifamily real estate.
Great. I think that's probably the best. That's the best business to be in, right? My best friend is very much into real estate and would have agreed with you on everything you said. And I just can't. Maybe if I had enough where I was like, what do I do with it? But right now, I just never. The other one is the stock market. I went through a finance school and went into banking, and I just never could care about the stock market. And I wish I could, and I wish I had a different story, but I don't. But
so the one thing about syndications that I'm not the smartest guy, but I know a lot about a lot. And the one thing I never knew about investing in multifamily real estate, to anybody listening, was the accelerated depreciation. Mm-hmm. So that's the one thing. I mean, if you put $50,000 into a deal, you can expect to get half of that written off in the first year. So I think from an investment perspective and like protecting your capital, and then just, you're making money through debt pay down, appreciation, and renting. I mean, it's just, I've never been able to look at some type of asset to be like, there's like 8 ways that this thing is making money.
Yeah.
It's just an exciting thing.
I think it's the best business. I totally agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. There's many reasons why it's the best. Yeah. So Wes, I alluded to it earlier. I think you have a great story, a great voice, and way of articulating it. When you start your podcast or you put out your book, let me know, man. I'll be the first in line. I really appreciate you coming on today, Wes. Anything else before we hop that you'd like to share from your experience?
No, I appreciate it, Jason. Yeah, I mean, like, if you're listening and you're an entrepreneur, oftentimes I strike a chord with people. I have a tendency to say what's on my mind. And I think communication is really important as an entrepreneur, but ask questions, ask for forgiveness. But yeah, if anybody has questions, find me on LinkedIn, email me, wes@highlevelmarketing.com. I'd love to experience share. I'd love to help anybody through anything. So happy to help anywhere I can. And if you are in the market, home services or healthcare, and you are in need of a website or know somebody that is, I mean, High Level Marketing, we're an amazing company in terms of web, SEO, and driving leads and real ROI. So, and I'll, love to have a conversation to dive deeper in that one-to-one.
I couldn't agree more. I think you guys are doing awesome work, man. I'm so excited to see where this new merger takes you guys. And we'll have to have you back on. The plan is to start to have some topics where we're going to have folks that have already been on come back on and discuss those. So if you'd be open, we'd love to have you back on in the future. But in the meantime, Wes, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Jason. I appreciate it.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you guys so much for watching or listening to the show. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to show us some love by liking, rating, and subscribing so we can keep making more and better content. If you'd like to support the show and get a great additional content like exclusive shows and even live group masterminds, please head over to patreon.com/Spear and Clover to become a member of the tribe. If you're interested in learning more about how we help entrepreneurs, visit spearandclover.com or message us on any of our platforms. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.